it's terrifying seeing what Australia is dealing with, and there is a political element to this, isn't there, which is some accusations that they're not dealing with the fact that this is climate change.
Absolutely. I mean, look, it's heartbreaking, and when you see people's homes devastated, but I think the reality, and we saw something similar here with the floods, this is the new norm. Extreme weather conditions are the new norms as climate change begins to bite. And I think the difficulty is, last year, the expert told us we had 10 years to take radical action to mitigate the worst effects of climate change. And we're doing stuff, but we're doing it as if we had 100 years, not 10 years to act. And so, we need a big, big step change, which is why, our organisation, other organisations are saying we need a Green New Deal, which is a massive programme of investment that looks to try and take carbon out of our economy, looks to try and insulate our homes, build renewable energy, create low-carbon public transport as a way to start responding to climate change. And we've just got to do it fast. And at the moment, our governments across the world are just not acting fast enough or taking this seriously enough.
Boris Johnson, he kicked off with his New Year message after some of the opposition parties' messages, asking for a healing and promising to be the Prime Minister for all.
Yeah. Well, do you know what? I think it was an optimistic message, which is good. We want optimism for our politicians, definitely. I think, the challenge for him, where he talks about unleashing prosperity, that's great. We're about to leave the European Union if the withdrawal agreement goes through. And then he's got the really hard job of making this thing work for the country. So Brexit is a process that's supposed to make the country better. But how you do that depends on what you do around domestic policy. And the thing I found quite staggering is if you think about the Queen's speech, which was just before Christmas, there was nothing really in there that was thinking about how we create an economy that works for everyone, how we deal with regional inequality, how we tackle climate change. So, yeah, be optimistic. Talk about unleashing the potential of the country, but my goodness, get on and do some stuff. And at the moment, it's not clear that they have a plan to do that. And I think there's going to be a lot of pressure to deliver on a whole lot of promises that were made to voters in that election and in the referendum.
We've got a decade of prosperity ahead. However, if you look at the Financial Times, they would argue that it's anything but. The headline they've got this morning, any boost from election likely to fizzle out soon. Economists are warning there's going to be little or no improvement in economic growth.
Absolutely. So, we ended the end of last year with growth pretty much stagnant. We're on the cusp of recession, and in part because of things in the UK, but globally, there is a recession coming, and it's likely to be made by Brexit. It's likely to be made by, depending on where we end up with the free trade agreement with the European Union. So the economic prospect is really, really difficult, which is why I go back to, my goodness, if ever you needed strong domestic policy that's trying to think about how you boost your economy, how you improve living standards, it's now. And to date, we're not seeing enough from the government. We didn't see it before the election. We haven't seen much in the manifesto. We didn't see anything in the Queen's speech. So they've got a really hard backdrop against which they need to get a grip and start doing things to make people's lives better.
The Finnish Prime Minister, Sanna Marin, who is 34 years old and the youngest female head of government in the world, so young and fresh and full of optimism, she's calling for a 6-hour workday, 4 days a week.
I think that sounds wonderful.
That doesn't sound like it's a good... It sounds wonderful to live, but it's sort of, you'd think traditionally that's not good for the economy.
So I mean, the 4-day week is something my organisation has been campaigning and talking about for a really long time. And the logic behind it is, at one point we used to work 7 days a week, right? And so as the economy became better, as we saw improvements in productivity, people negotiated for more time off. And so you come to a point that, 5 days is just where we've ended up. And what we've seen in the last 40 years is that, historically productivity went up, the amount of wages went up, but also the amount of time they went down. And we've seen a breakdown. And so what policies that, like the ones we're advocating, what we're seeing in Finland is actually it is the right aspiration to say we shouldn't have to work all the time. If we're productive and we can do our work in less time, people should have time to care about their family.
People at home are thinking, hang on, I do 1, 2 jobs. Some people do 3 jobs just to make ends meet. It's hard to see where the money would come from. You'd have to have a very nice firm, wouldn't you, to pay the same?
Yeah, but also people are more productive. If you're less shattered, if you're less knackered, you are more productive. And actually, the other things like caring responsibilities that we all have, we've got an ageing society, people are looking after their kids and their grandparents. It's actually part of our norm, but we don't recognise it in the way that we think about work and the labour market. So it's a progressive move, and the Scandinavians are always years ahead of us.
Yeah, they seem to be, don't they?
Yeah, to see the Finnish Prime Minister gripping this.